Kwame Dlamini's house buzzed with excitement, the kind that comes only once in a lifetime. His daughter Amelie's wedding was just days away, and every corner of the home reflected joy and anticipation. Fresh flowers adorned the hallway, the scent of jasmine mingling with the faint aroma of polished furniture. Invitations had gone out, dresses were being fitted, and the caterers were running through the final menu. Yet beneath all the excitement, a quiet tension gnawed at Kwame's heart. He found himself walking through the rooms, imagining Amelie in her wedding dress, her smile lighting up the day. Memories flooded back, sleepless nights when she was a baby, the years of balancing business meetings with bedtime stories, and every sacrifice he made to give her the life he always dreamed she would have. Kwame had worked tirelessly, not for wealth alone, but to instill values and provide Amelie with a future of comfort and dignity. Yet, despite all his planning and love, Kwame couldn't shake a growing unease. He had met Chike Obi, Amelie's fiancé, only a few times, but something about the young man's arrogant smirk and casual disregard for his advice had unsettled him. Kwame didn't yet know that this arrogance would soon explode into a public confrontation, testing not just his patience, but the very bond he had built with his daughter. For now, he smiled, adjusted a flower arrangement, and silently promised himself, no matter what happens, he would protect Amelie and her happiness at all costs. The wedding venue was alive with energy. Soft music floated through the air, waiters moved gracefully among the tables, and the scent of fresh flowers mixed with the rich aroma of the catered feast. Kwame walked among the arrangements, making sure everything was perfect for Amelie's big day. It had to be flawless. After all, this was a day she would remember forever. As he approached the seating area, Kwame noticed something that made his chest tighten. Chike Obi, his daughter's fiancé, was rearranging the chairs with a casual air, completely ignoring the careful plan Kwame had prepared. "Chike," Kwame said politely, "perhaps we should follow the seating arrangement we discussed. It will make it easier for the elders and the family to find their places." Chike turned slowly, a smug smile on his face. "Father, I appreciate your concern, but I think I know what I'm doing. Relax." Kwame's voice remained calm but firm. "I understand, but this is important. Please just—" Before he could finish, Chike shoved him aside with surprising force. The word hit Kwame like a cold slap in the face. "Old fool," he sneered, his voice loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Who even listens to someone your age anymore?" Time seemed to freeze. Amelie, standing nearby, felt her stomach drop. She opened her mouth, unsure what to say, shock and embarrassment written across her face. Guests began whispering, glancing back and forth between the two men, sensing the tension thickening in the air like a storm about to break. Some shook their heads, others looked away politely, unwilling to witness a family confrontation on such a day. Kwame took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had been insulted, disrespected, and publicly humiliated, but deep inside, a different realization dawned. Chike saw him only as an old man, a powerless figure who could be pushed aside. He didn't understand that age did not equal weakness, and respect was not something that could be demanded. It had to be recognized. Kwame straightened his shoulders, his eyes calm but sharp, a flicker of quiet determination shining through. This wasn't just about the seating or a moment of embarrassment. It was about his daughter, her future, and revealing the true character of the man she was about to marry. Kwame understood that he needed to act carefully, subtly, yet with authority that could not be ignored. As Chike smirked, thinking he had won, Kwame's mind was already working, plotting a plan that would turn this humiliation into a moment of revelation. Amelie looked at her father, feeling a mixture of fear and trust, sensing that he was not defeated. In that charged, whispering room, the first battle of the wedding had been fought, and Kwame was already thinking 10 steps ahead. Kwame stepped away from the gathering, moving toward a quiet corner of the wedding venue. The voices and whispers of the guests seemed distant now, replaced by the pounding of his own thoughts. He needed a moment to breathe, to gather himself, because the shove and the words, "old fool," still echoed sharply in his mind. But underneath the sting of humiliation, a deeper feeling began to rise, determination. As he closed his eyes, memories flooded back. He saw Amelie as a little girl, tugging at his tie, asking him to read her bedtime story despite the mountain of work waiting on his desk. He remembered nights spent worrying about rent, school fees, and business deals, always thinking about how to give her the life she deserved. The sacrifices, the long hours, the sleepless nights, it all came rushing back. Every decision, every hardship had been for her. Kwame realized that this confrontation with Chike was about far more than respect or pride. This was about Amelie's happiness, her future, and protecting her from a man whose charm hid arrogance and selfishness. Chike didn't see him as the father who had worked tirelessly to build a stable, loving home. He saw only an old man in his way, someone to mock and dismiss. That made Kwame's next move even more crucial. He sat down for a moment, letting his mind run through every detail of Chaik's behavior he had observed so far. The dismissive smirks, the careless gestures, the arrogance thinly disguised as charm. Kwame thought about subtle ways to reveal the truth, ways that would not embarrass Amelie, but would lay bare Chaik's true character for all to see. He felt a spark of satisfaction realizing that this was a chance to turn Chaik's arrogance into his own undoing. Kwame's mind raced, plotting a careful, strategic response. He would not confront Chaik with anger or rash words. Instead, he would act with patience, with intelligence, and with the quiet authority that came from years of life experience and moral strength. This was the moment to show that true power does not come from loudness or brute force. It comes from wisdom, preparation, and unwavering conviction. As he rose, straightening his shoulders, Kwame felt a calm determination settle over him. He would protect his daughter. He would expose Chaik's lies. And he would do it in a way that left no doubt about who truly deserved respect. In that quiet corner, away from the whispers and the tension, Kwame made a silent promise to himself. Chaik's arrogance would meet the weight of truth, and Amelie's future would remain untouched by deception. Amelie's heart was racing as she stepped aside, pulling Chaik away from the crowd. The whispers and soft laughter of the guests faded into the background, replaced by the sharp, uneasy tension between them. "Chaik," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "why did you push my father? Why did you call him an old fool in front of everyone?" Chaik smirked, leaning back casually, as if her question were nothing more than an inconvenience. "Amelie, you worry too much," he said smoothly. "He's just old and set in his ways. He doesn't understand people like me." Amelie's eyes widened. She had expected excuses, maybe a nervous apology, but not this dismissive arrogance. Set in his ways? That's no excuse for disrespect. He raised me. He built everything so I could have a life like this. How can you treat him like this? Chaik shrugged, the corners of his lips curling into a faint, chilling smile. "Honestly, Amelie, let's be real here. You love me, right? You chose me, and we both know why. Don't lie to yourself. Your father has money. He can provide, yes, but I didn't marry you for him. I married you because of the opportunities that come with it. That's just the truth." The words hit Amelie like a punch to the stomach. Suddenly, the charm she had seen in him, the confidence and smooth words, felt hollow and fake. Doubt began to creep in, small but sharp. Had she really known the man she was about to marry? Was this arrogance, this cold calculation, hiding behind every smile and polite word? She felt a chill, sensing the toxicity that had been masked as charm. From across the room, Kwame watched quietly. Every gesture, every word, every flicker of Chaik's smirk was noted in his mind. He had expected arrogance, but now he had proof, quiet, clear, and undeniable. He didn't need to act yet. He was preparing, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth to everyone without shaming Amelie. Amelie took a step back, trying to gather her thoughts. Her trust wavered, replaced by a growing awareness that her father's instincts had been right all along. Chaik's arrogance wasn't just a momentary lapse. It was who he truly was. And Kwame, standing silently at a distance, radiated a calm authority that reminded her why she had always believed in him. As the guests laughed softly in the background, unaware of the private tension unfolding, Amelie realized something crucial. She had a choice. And with her father's wisdom guiding her, she felt a quiet strength growing inside her. She didn't need to confront Chaik immediately. For now, she would observe, listen, and prepare for the truth that was coming, because the man she had been about to trust blindly was showing his true colors. After witnessing Chaik's arrogance and dismissive behavior, Kwame knew he couldn't rely on assumptions alone. This was bigger than a single insult. It was about protecting Amelie from a man whose charm hid manipulation, and quietly he began digging, carefully piecing together Chaik's past, determined to uncover the truth without alerting him. Kwame started with subtle inquiries, speaking to acquaintances, old business contacts, and even distant relatives who had crossed paths with Chaik. The stories were consistent, each one revealing a side of Chaik that Amelie had never seen. A man who had used charm to control situations, who manipulated families for financial gain, and who had lied about his education, career, and personal background. The picture that emerged was stark. Chaik wasn't just arrogant, he was a calculated opportunist. He recorded conversations discreetly and collected documents and messages that confirmed what he had been hearing. Every detail, every small deception, added weight to the evidence. Kwame's meticulous approach wasn't driven by anger. It was guided by strategy. He knew that public humiliation would only harm Amelie, but revealing Chaik's true nature at the right moment could protect her and prevent a lifetime of regret. Once Kwame had compiled enough evidence, he turned to someone he trusted completely, Nneka Okoye, a family lawyer known for her discretion and sharp intellect. In the quiet of her office, Kwame laid out everything he had discovered. Nneka listened carefully, nodding as the documents and recordings were presented. "This is more than enough," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. "We don't need to humiliate anyone, especially Amelie. But we can expose him strategically, make it clear to everyone who he really is without putting her in an awkward position. Timing and presentation will be everything." Kwame felt a sense of relief. He had always believed in measured, intelligent action rather than rash decisions, and now he had a clear plan. He would wait for the right moment, the wedding toast, the gathering of family and friends, and then, quietly but powerfully, reveal the truth. As he left Neka's office, Kwame's mind was already running through the next steps. He imagined Chaik's confident smile faltering, the whispers spreading across the room, and the stunned reactions of those who had trusted his charm. Most importantly, he envisioned Amelie seeing the truth without feeling exposed or betrayed. Kwame felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that preparation and patience would win the day. He wasn't just defending his own dignity, he was protecting his daughter from a lifetime of manipulation and heartbreak. And for the first time since the confrontation, he allowed himself a small, confident smile, knowing that justice, subtle but undeniable, was within his grasp. The wedding hall shimmered with soft light, crystal chandeliers reflecting in the polished floor. Guests chatted quietly, their laughter mingling with the gentle hum of music. The ceremony was about to begin, but beneath the surface, a tension hovered like a storm waiting to break. Everyone could feel it, even if they didn't yet understand why. Kwame sat quietly in his seat, exuding calm and confidence. His posture was straight, his eyes steady, and every movement showed a man in control. Though the air was thick with expectation, he radiated authority, the kind that comes from years of life experience, hard work, and moral strength. To the outside world, he seemed composed, almost serene, but inside, his mind was alert, cataloging every detail, every gesture, every expression in the room. Chaik, on the other hand, thrived on attention. He moved among the guests, smiling broadly, offering handshakes and small compliments, his arrogance masked with charm. He laughed a little too loudly, leaning into conversations, trying to show everyone he was confident and in charge. But Kwame noticed the cracks beneath the polished exterior, small moments of impatience, the way Chaik's eyes darted nervously whenever someone looked at him too long, the subtle tension in his smile that suggested overconfidence was beginning to falter. Amelie, sitting nearby, glanced at her father. His calmness was contagious. For the first time that day, she felt a sense of reassurance wash over her. She had trusted Chaik's charm, but now she realized that her father's steady presence was far more reliable. She leaned slightly closer to Kwame, silently seeking guidance, and found herself instinctively trusting his judgment. Kwame's eyes met Neka's across the room, a barely noticeable signal passing between them. She nodded subtly, understanding exactly what he meant. The time to act was approaching, and every move had to be precise. There was no room for rashness or dramatics, just measured, undeniable truth that would speak for itself. As the officiant began the ceremony, the guests hushed, the atmosphere turning solemn and expectant. Chaik straightened, trying to mask his rising impatience with a forced smile. He was used to control, used to being the center of attention, and he did not like being challenged, even subtly. But Kwame remained composed, every detail recorded in his mind, every plan unfolding exactly as he intended. Inside Amelie, a quiet realization began to grow. Her father's wisdom and calm authority were stronger than Chaik's arrogance. And in that moment, she understood that the coming revelation, careful, deliberate, and undeniable, would not just expose Chaik, it would protect her, honor her family, and finally set the stage for truth to win. The room fell into a hushed silence as Kwame rose from his seat, the crystal glass in his hand catching the soft glow of the chandeliers. Guests turned their attention toward him, curious about the toast he had promised. But there was a tension in his posture, calm yet commanding, that made everyone lean forward instinctively. Kwame's eyes swept across the crowd, finally resting on Chaik, whose confident smile now seemed slightly forced, as if he sensed what was coming but didn't yet understand it. "My friends, family, and loved ones," Kwame began, his voice steady, clear, and measured. "Today is meant to be a celebration of love, trust, and commitment. But before we raise our glasses, I feel it's important to speak the truth, because truth, like love, cannot be ignored." Chaik shifted in his seat, the smirk fading slightly as a flicker of unease crossed his face. Kwame continued, his words deliberate. "Earlier today, I was disrespected. I was pushed aside and called an old fool by the man about to marry my daughter. At first, I was stunned like anyone would be. But then I remembered something far more important than pride, protecting Amelie and revealing the character of those who surround her." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in, then pulled out a neatly organized folder. "I have always believed that actions define a person more than words. And actions, in Chaik's case, tell a story I cannot ignore. This folder contains documents, messages, and evidence that show a pattern of lies, manipulation, and financial scheming. Proof that Chaik has not always been the man he pretends to be. Whispers began to ripple through the guests as Kwame carefully detailed incidents, describing how Chaik had used charm to deceive other families, how he belittled and manipulated those who trusted him, and how he had thought of Amelie's family only in terms of wealth and advantage. Every word was precise, every fact verifiable, and every gesture underscored with quiet authority. Chaik's confidence, once towering and smug, began to crumble. He opened his mouth to speak, to deny, but the evidence was too strong, too clear. Guests leaned forward, exchanging glances, murmuring, questioning, and seeing Chaik not as a charming fiancé, but as a man who had been hiding his true nature. The arrogance that had filled the room hours ago was replaced with doubt and suspicion. Kwame looked directly at his daughter, who sat frozen but wide-eyed, a mix of shock and growing relief on her face. Her father had not only defended her honor, but also exposed the truth, without ever humiliating. The whispers grew louder, the room alive with quiet gasps of astonishment, and Kwame's calm presence ensured that the revelation carried the weight it deserved. By the time he concluded, respect is not given to those who demand it. Respect is earned, and it is recognized by those who honor truth and integrity. The room was transformed. Chaik, once arrogant and overconfident, was now a man stripped of pretense, facing the undeniable judgment of family, friends, and the world he had tried to charm. Chaik's face went pale as the room absorbed Kwame's words and the evidence he had presented. He opened his mouth, fumbling for an excuse, a denial, anything to salvage the situation. "That's not," he started, but his voice faltered under the weight of truth. Every document, every recorded conversation, every fact Kwame had shared was undeniable, and the guests could see it clearly. The room was no longer just a wedding hall. It had become a stage where arrogance met consequence. Family elders whispered among themselves, shaking their heads at Chaik's audacity, while business associates exchanged knowing glances, silently acknowledging the careful, strategic way Kwame had revealed the truth. One by one, the murmurs grew into nods of agreement, voices of support quietly but unmistakably backing. Amelie, standing nearby, felt a rush of relief and pride. Her heart, which had been heavy with confusion and fear just hours ago, now swelled with admiration for her father. She realized in that moment just how deeply he cared, not just for her happiness, but for her safety, her dignity, and her future. Kwame wasn't reacting in anger. He was acting with intelligence, calm authority, and unwavering focus. That combination had stripped Chaik of his bravado and exposed the true character behind the charm. Chaik's attempts to regain control only made his defeat more visible. His voice rose, trembling with frustration, but the guests had already seen through the mask. Their expressions reflected disbelief and disappointment, the whispers of judgment spreading faster than Chaik could recover. Every step he took to defend himself seemed to backfire, making his earlier arrogance look worse than anyone had imagined. Kwame remained composed, the epitome of dignity. He didn't shout, he didn't berate, but every word he had spoken carried the weight of truth and experience. The calm, deliberate way he had handled the situation left no room for doubt. This was not just a father defending his daughter. This was a man asserting justice with clarity, foresight, and moral authority. By the time the murmurs settled into quiet agreement, Chaik's arrogance had completely crumbled. The plans he had laid out, the schemes he had tried to execute to control and manipulate, had failed spectacularly. Guests turned their attention to Kwame, nodding in respect, some even whispering admiration for the father who had handled a potentially explosive situation with such precision. Amelie stepped closer, her eyes glistening, feeling safe and protected. Her father had not only defended her, but had done so in a way that elevated her, preserved her dignity, and taught everyone present a lesson about respect, honor, and integrity. Chaik's downfall was complete, and Kwame's quiet, strategic victory became the defining moment of the wedding, one that no guest would ever forget. The tension in the wedding hall finally began to ease, replaced by a quiet sense of relief. Amelie walked toward her father, her steps hesitant at first, then steady as the weight of the moment sank in. When she reached him, she threw her arms around Kwame, holding him tightly, almost as if she were afraid to let go. "Thank you, Papa," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for seeing the truth, for protecting me, and for being so strong when I couldn't even think clearly." Kwame hugged her back, his grip firm but gentle. "Amelie," he said softly, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes, "everything I did today, I did for you. Not just because I'm your father, but because I love you and want you to have a life filled with respect, honesty, and happiness. You deserve nothing less." Amelie wiped a tear from her cheek, feeling a wave of gratitude and admiration. "I thought I knew people, Papa. I thought I could trust Chaik. But now I see. I see what true character looks like. I see why your guidance matters so much. Kwame smiled, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Amelie, the world is full of people who can charm you, who can seem perfect on the surface. But it's our values, our instincts, and our ability to recognize truth that protect us. A life partner should respect you, honor you, and build with you, not manipulate or control. Always remember that. She nodded, feeling a newfound confidence settle in her chest. Today had been shocking and painful, but it had also been a lesson in clarity and strength. Her father's calm, strategic handling of the situation had not only protected her from Chike's deceit, but had also shown her how to trust her instincts and recognize toxic behavior before it took root. I understand now, Papa, she said, her voice firmer, steadier. I won't let anyone treat me, or you, with disrespect. I'll be more careful, and I'll always value what you taught me. Kwame's eyes glimmered with pride. That's all I've ever wanted, Amelie. To raise a daughter who is wise, strong, and capable of standing firm when it matters most. Today, you've learned something important, not just about others, but about yourself. You have the strength to choose what's right, and the courage to reject what's wrong. Amelie hugged him again, feeling the bond between them deepen in a way she had never experienced before. In that moment, she realized that her father wasn't just a protector. He was a guide, a teacher, and a source of unwavering support. The confidence and clarity she felt now were priceless, and she knew that, no matter what the future held, Kwame would always be there to guide her, protect her, and help her make the right choices. The two stood together, surrounded by the guests who had witnessed the unfolding drama. But for Amelie and Kwame, the world had narrowed to this moment of connection, trust, and mutual respect, a bond strengthened by truth, love, and unshakable family loyalty. By the next morning, the story of Amelie's wedding had spread like wildfire. Videos and photos from the ceremony circulated across social media, trending on every platform in Nigeria and even reaching audiences across Africa. People were captivated, not by the wedding itself, but by the way Kwame had handled an impossible situation with intelligence, calm, and dignity. Comments poured in from every corner, parents praising his courage, young adults admiring his strategy, and families discussing the lessons embedded in the story. Kwame's careful, measured approach became a symbol of what true parental wisdom looked like, standing up for loved ones, exposing wrongdoing without drama, and protecting the integrity of family. News outlets picked up the story, interviews were requested, and soon Kwame's name was synonymous with respect, justice, and moral authority. Families everywhere began talking about boundaries and vigilance in relationships, realizing that charm and superficial kindness could hide selfish motive. They shared Kwame's example as a guide for teaching children to recognize manipulation, trust their instincts, and value honesty and respect above all. The conversation wasn't just about one wedding. It was about what it means to protect loved ones, to act with courage, and to uphold dignity in the face of arrogance and deceit. Kwame, humble yet aware of the impact, made one statement that quickly went viral. Respect is not earned by age alone. It is recognized when you honor the ones who gave you life and love. The words resonated deeply with audiences, sparking debates, reflections, and admiration across social media. Long after the wedding was over, Kwame's actions left a lasting impression. His strategic, dignified response had not only defended his daughter, but had set an example for millions, proving that true strength lies in calm, deliberate action, guided by love and unwavering moral clarity. Families would remember this story, share it, and reflect on it for years to come.